Hey guys, happy Friday. I can't believe it's like a couple weeks away from Christmas. So today I was just kind of going through this giant stack of mending that I never seem to have time to get around to doing. And I thought, there's so many people that have been telling me that they don't know how to use their sewing machine, or there are these things that they want to do, and they don't know how to do it, with either sewing by hand or sewing with a sewing machine. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of quick tips and show you some things that might help you out if you're going to be making some Christmas presents or just doing mending or whatever you might need to do. And it was really interesting. My husband is a teacher, and he was helping out at the school that he teaches at, and they actually closed down the home ec class. Like I was just surprised that nowadays a lot of schools can't find home ec teachers and are having to eliminate home ec as a elective or requirement. So I thought that was kind of sad, because even though I don't use my sewing skills super often, it does really come in handy, especially when I want to save a little money and make something for someone as a gift instead of paying someone else a lot of money to make it for me. You can kind of custom make things, which is pretty cool. And even if you're not like super skilled at sewing, you can still make simple things that are really thoughtful and really nice. So I'm going to show you some things. First, I'm going to show you my almost 2-year-old's wonderful artwork on my sewing machine. She thought the Mommy's sewing machine was a little bit too bland and it needed some sprucing up. So I'm going to show you. Let me see if I can flip the camera here. Okay, so see all this lovely artwork by Little Miss Aurora. I think there was even more, but also I'm going to show you. This is if you've never heard of the Young Living Thieves Cleaner, it's basically magical. Because I have gotten Sharpie off of the wall. I have gotten things that you would think would never ever come off, and this Thieves Cleaner does it every time. In addition to the fact that it doesn't bother my asthma as a cleaner, and it is completely natural, plant-based, no additives, no strange preservatives, so that it's completely harmless for the kids. So if they want to help me clean, or if they somehow get into my cleaning stuff, it's not an issue. So, okay, so the first thing with the sewing machine is the threading of the sewing machine. If your sewing machine isn't threaded correctly, you're going to have problems with being able to get it to work and to sew the proper stitches. So the first thing is you want to look at usually the top of the machine will have numbers on it, and it'll show you usually it will show you steps 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. on where your thread needs to go. That's super, super important for when you're going to be using a sewing machine. Now, every sewing machine is a little bit different, so depending on your machine, you may have to kind of maybe YouTube it or Google your brand, whatever your brand and your model number is, to be sure that you're doing it right, especially if your machine doesn't have the number guide that shows you how to do it. The other thing that you're looking at when you're threading is your spool of thread. Mine's actually on the back of this one. Oh goodness, sorry. The camera doesn't like it when I switch angles and stuff. I don't think you can see it, but depending on the machine, just simply the direction that the thread is coming off of your spool can change a lot as far as the sewing machine being able to function. So if it's supposed to come off that way, but you have it accidentally turned the other way, that can even cause issues and difficulties when you're trying to use it. So either you can look it up. If you have your manual, a lot of times it will tell you in there. You can call the company, or nowadays we can YouTube and Google basically everything. So, okay, so I'm going to put my thread back on there. That's the way that I had it. Okay, so that is So that's tip number 1. Make sure your machine is threaded the way that it's supposed to be threaded. And again, that does depend on what kind of machine you have. So make sure you check that out. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Nicole. Glad to have you guys. Okay, so the second thing that you want to make sure with your sewing machine is that your bobbin is threaded correctly. So this, I'm going to turn it around and show you the bobbin thread. That's the bottom thread. If your bobbin isn't threaded correctly, that's when you're like trying to, you know, run your sewing machine, and on the underside of your fabric, you'll see the thread is like all knotted up and gnarled up. That happens when the bobbin is having issues. So I'm going to show you the bobbin. This is number 2. Okay. I'm going to show you basically 3 main things that are really important when you're going to be sewing. So the bobbin is usually in some sort of metal casing like this. Okay, so to pull it out, you want to pull the little lever and slide it out. Okay, inside of there is your bobbin. I'm going to try to set the camera down so I can use both of my hands to show you. Let's see if it will let me do this here. Okay, guys, here we go. You know, I'm just going to flip it so I can show you with 2 hands. Okay, so here's our bobbin. It doesn't want to let me. There we go. Okay, here's your bobbin inside. So if your thread is not coming through that little section on the side properly, that's going to cause problems. So this is how you make sure that it's in that particular spot that it's supposed to be in. So you're going to slide your bobbin in like this, okay? And then you're going to find that little groove on the side. You can see like all the other areas are smooth, and then there's that little groove. Okay, I'm showing you guys 3 tips to help with your sewing machine if you're going to be making Christmas gifts and things like that. 3 things that are going to help you get your sewing machine going to get some gifts. Okay, so it goes in the groove, and then you're going to pull it along the top to go into that other little, sorry, I'm trying to hold it still. It's going to be in that other little spot. Now, you know, each machine is slightly different. So again, look at your manual, and you can, you know, maybe YouTube it for your brand new sewing machine, but most bobbins are like this. I haven't seen one yet that wasn't like this on the newer, and I learned how to sew on like a really old machine. So you're gonna thread it through like that. All right, once you get your thread in there, you know it's in the right spot that it's supposed to be for your bobbin, so you don't get it all gnarled up when you're trying to sew. All right, so then you're gonna pull the lever and just slide it back into the bobbin area. Okay, so I'm gonna show you that. I'm gonna try to flip the camera for you guys here. Okay, so now we're just pulling that lever and sliding it in. Now when you're sliding it in, you want to make sure that this part is in the right spot, that little arm lever. And you'll feel it when you're kind of sliding it and pushing it in. You will feel it kind of click when it finds the right spot. There's a little groove that it goes in, and you want to make sure your thread is kind of out like this. Now before you close the little door, you want to make sure that this thread gets pulled up where it's supposed to. So this is where you have already threaded the top, which I talked about a little bit ago, guys, so you can watch the beginning if you want to see how I did that. And then, so you're going to kind of hold this thread to make sure it doesn't get tangled up. And you're going to turn the little wheel on the side here. So when you turn that little wheel, what it does is it will go down in there, and it should pull your bobbin thread up. Except I wasn't holding it right, so hang on a second. Give me 1 second, guys. I need a camera person for this to be able to hold on. Okay. So I'm holding it, and then I'm going to turn it and it's going, the needle's going down in, and then it should catch the bobbin thread, and there it is. It just pulled the bobbin thread up. If you can see that there, it just pulled it up. Okay. So some of you guys might have learned this once upon a time. Maybe it's been a long time and you haven't used a sewing machine in a while, but I end up using my sewing machine a little bit more around the holidays. So I just figured it might be helpful for you guys to see some quick tips to help get your sewing machine going so you can do some fun projects for Christmas or gifts or any occasion really. Okay, so I got my bobbin thread pulled up, I close my little door, and then usually there's a front piece that goes on that you can slide on. This piece comes off so that if you have a narrow opening, like let's say a pant leg, and you want to be able to sew the hem on a narrow pant leg, you can fit the pant leg or the sleeve of something onto this little arm and get the edge of it underneath so you can easily sew it. And sometimes having this on there is just a little bit too wide for whatever item of clothing that you're trying to work on or whatever project you're doing. So, okay, the third thing, number 3, is the tension of the thread. This is super key. Now this one has a digital screen that shows you the tension of the thread. So this one's really easy because it is a little bit of a newer machine. Again, every machine is going to be, oh, and here's more of my daughter's artwork on the marker. I showed you guys my super awesome thieves cleaner and how you can get marker off of things with the thieves cleaner a little in the beginning. But anyways, my daughter thought my machine needed some sprucing up. So with this one, all you're doing is putting in the correct number for the stitch that you want to do. Now, depending on the item of clothing that you're doing or the project that you're doing, you may want to do different stitches. You know, the most common one is the regular straight one, but if you're doing an edge of your clothing, you don't want the edge or the edge of a blanket or something, usually you want to use a zigzag stitch, or one of these that are sort of similar to a zigzag or a finishing stitch, basically. And then, of course, there's some more fancy ones depending on if you're doing like a design or something like that, because you can do basically like an embroidery type design if you want to. Now, on some of the older machines, what you would be doing, see if I can focus in on the numbers for you here. What you'll be doing is one number is the top thread tension. So this number is the top thread. I don't know if you can see that very good. Okay, one number is the top thread and one number is the bottom thread, the bobbin thread. So on some machines, you're going to have a knob that's going to have numbers on it, and you're going to turn the knob to be the number that you want it to be for the top thread and the number that you want it to be for the bottom thread. So that one requires a little bit more research in your little manual or maybe online, depending on if you have your manual, to figure out what tension equals what stitch that you're wanting to do. So that all just kind of, that's number 3, is just making sure that your tension on your stitches are going to work properly with the fabric that you need. Now, with a more rugged fabric, like let's say these kind of khaki type pants, you're going to want a little bit of a higher tension. And with more delicate or really, really stretchy fabrics, like I'm doing one project with this kind of lacy gauze fabric, you're going to do less tension for those kinds of fabrics. Sometimes there's also one other dial, so there might be 2 dials, one for the top thread tension, one for the bottom, and sometimes there's a third dial that shows the length or width of your stitch. So like, for example, with the straight stitch, you can change your actual single stitch length to be longer or shorter. Sorry, my camera is not focusing super great. There we go. But for a zigzag stitch, that dial will help bring the stitch wider or skinnier zigzag, depending on what you're working on. Hey Matt, how's it going? So, I'm going to show you guys on this very more like delicate fabric, this lacy one I'm working on for a friend who just had a baby, a little project. what I did is, and you can't even barely see it here, is I actually did a zigzag stitch because it's on the edge here, and I want it to have a finished look, and I want it not to fray, especially with this delicate gauze type fabric. So that's always something to think about, is what kind of stitch is going to go with the fabric that you are using. So, okay, so those are my 3 tips for getting your sewing machine working. And then I wanted to just tell you guys a couple of quick ideas for gifts. So if you have some clothing that maybe you haven't worn in a long time, or got torn or stained or something like that, you can use it to make some really easy gifts, especially if it's like a fun design on the fabric, or maybe a really cool t-shirt, but it doesn't fit anymore or something like that. You can make those into easy pillows. And I mean, just Google that. I mean, it's super easy. You're just cutting 2 squares or 2 rectangles the same size, turn the fabric inside out, sew the edges all but one little section, and then fill it and sew up the little opening. That's it. So fun pillows are a great fun gift to do. And you can even cut out, like, let's say the letter of either the person's last name or first name from another t-shirt or fabric that you have available, and sew that letter onto the front of the pillow. Now you want to sew the letter on before you sew the 2 rectangles or squares together. So just sew it on the one side that's going to be the front of the pillow first, and then turn your 2, squares or rectangles inside out and go ahead and finish your pillow. So, and then another thing that you can do, especially with old pants, like I've got some like khaki type things here, old jeans and things like that. It's really fun to make an easy little, almost a satchel purse type of deal, like this kind of thing, sort of. So you can cut, basically 2 rectangles and another piece that looks like a flap that would go over top, and you can cut that in like a triangle or whatever shape you want to do, and it's pretty easy to sew that together. So like a clutch or a satchel or something like that, and it's not too difficult to put a little strap on it or something like that. So those are a couple of gift ideas. And then if you want a sewing tutorial, you can message me, contact me. I can give you a little sewing tutorial if you want. I have been in like sewing fashion shows where I've made my own clothes once upon a time. I don't do that anymore because I don't have time. But so I know how to do buttons and zippers and seams and collars and all kinds of stuff, although some of that I'm a little rusty on, so I have to brush up on it a little bit. But life has been very busy, so I haven't had a lot of time to do much sewing recently. But okay, so, and then one other thing I wanted to show you guys, this is the last thing, is, okay, have you ever post a funny face, an emoji face, if you have ever split your pants, okay? I think most of us have had that experience at some point. And so we have, in our household, we have a pretty good stack of clothes that have been torn, and a lot of times it's usually split, whether that's in the back or the front or somehow in the crotch seam. So, there's probably a more technical term for that, but I can't think of it right now. So anyway, so I'm going to show you. You can fix that. If you split your pants, you can usually fix it. So you ready? I'm going to show you. All right, I'm going to put this down for a second so I can get my pants out and show you. I know I have one of them here that I can show you. I know I'm not the only person that has ever split their pants at some point, right? And it's not necessarily because the pants are too small. Just sometimes over time, your favorite pair of pants, the fabric gets worn thin, and then one day the fabric just says, I give up, and doesn't want to work. So what I did is I just took my pair of pants and I turned them inside out, okay? So that's step 1 to fix your split pants, if you ever get split pants, okay? All right, so And these ones, the funny part about these ones is you can see that I actually already fixed these once. So this is the second time. So I think this fabric may be close to the end of its life. We may have to retire this pair. But so what you're going to do is you're going to look for your wherever your split is. So this one's not right on the seam, but that's okay. I can still make that work. Especially since these pants are not super tight. I have some room to work. So you can see last time, what you can see my zigzag stitch that I did. I like doing a zigzag stitch for when you're fixing split pants, because a zigzag stitch just seems to have a lot more solidarity to it. It just seems to be more secure. And I think that's because of the back and forth instead of just the one line that is easily kind of pulled at. So when you do the zigzag, and you can go over it a couple times, like you can see in some areas where I went over it a couple times with the zigzag stitch to make sure it was nice and secure. Okay, so you're gonna take wherever your hole is, and you're going to try to find the edge of it where it ends, basically, and then line it up with the edge of your seam, wherever the inseam is of those pants. Now you could do this almost anywhere that you have a tear. You know, you could even do this on the knee, but you will see a small line where the seam is. But you know, when you're repairing something, you usually want to go with wherever your seam is, the closest seam of that garment, whether that's the side, the inseam, or whatever it is. You want to bring the edge of your tear or rip up to that edge, and then basically I'm just going to sew that together. So I'm going to go kind of back over where my zigzag was and go ahead and sew it. So I have my zigzag on. I'm going to flip the camera for you guys so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so I lined it up with my seam, and then all I'm doing is putting it underneath the foot pedal of the sewing machine, okay? And making sure. Now where I'm going to start sewing is not right at the top of the rip. I'm going to go a little bit above it and start sewing so that it's nice and secure. And then I'm just going to go over it a couple of times. I'm sorry about my dogs, guys. They think it's their job. The whole entire neighborhood is their kingdom. And they have to keep it peaceful and quiet. Okay, so all I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and do a zigzag stitch. And if you're sewing through lots of layers of fabric, make sure, my phone might die, guys. I'm sorry. My battery's running low. So all I'm doing is doing a zigzag, and then I'm going to go over it at least probably twice, maybe 3 times. But since my phone is dying, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. But comment if you have any questions, or if you are looking for a specific tip or trick as far as sewing or making things as gifts, or some sort of mending question. Just go ahead and comment and let me know if you have anything. But I hope you guys have a fabulous day, a great weekend. I'd love to know, what are you up to this weekend? I'm going to be working and lots of birthday parties, actually. So, okay, well, have a great day, guys.